So it is a great honor to be able to introduce Jenny Tooth from the UK Business Angels Association. Jenny, I'm very impressed that you're up and shiny and here, because I know you were celebrating and partying last night at an awards ceremony. So thank you very much for being part of today. And I'm going to hand over straight to you to sort of introduce yourself, introduce the organization. And I know you've a lot of insights and strong beliefs on this whole arena for female founders and investors. So I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, and it is a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much, Claire Marie and John, for this invitation. A great pleasure. I only wish I was up partying last night, but with online Zoom events, it does get a bit more limiting. But thank you for that thought, perhaps for next year. So yes, so my role is as I run the trade body for angel investing across the UK, and I've been doing that since 2012. So a long-standing supporter of angel investing, and I've been angel investing myself for some time as well. So this is really for me a very exciting opportunity, talking to a new group. Very impressed by the figures, John. That sounds a great amount of money raised. And I think the intention behind this is so important to me. My role, although my role is very much to help build and grow angel investment across the UK, I'm tackling really what is a very, very serious issue. And that is that probably only about 20%, and possibly even less than that, of the visible angel market at the moment is women investors. And we all know how important women investors are. The reason I am especially keen to see many more women angel investors is actually because we know from all of the work we've done and our research that women have between, sorry, I have a dog, sorry, get down. 30 to, sorry, dogs always appear in shows, don't they? 30 to 50% of my of the investment that women make is actually in women founders. Right, out you go. Sorry.
I've got a cat that's currently going crazy in here, so
you can tell this is live.
Not live. You can tell it's live. Right. Anyway, so where were we? So yeah, so really that's why it's very important, and also because we know that during COVID, women founders have had a special challenges, and this is something that has been ongoing. It's a systemic issue in this country. So we have women founders who have constantly been challenged to access investment, and we don't have enough women there as investors to back those great founders. And whilst those two things are not totally interdependent, as I said, because of that high empathy between women investors and women founders, this is fundamental to any strategy. So delighted that you've got women investors and women founders coming together. This is a very important start. If we look at, I know a lot of the challenges across there, for most women, it's about access, it's about knowledge, it's about insight, and it's often about awareness of the opportunity. And we know that for those women who are investing and investing successfully here in the UK, it's very much down to the communities within which they are operating. And you'll find that the real reason many women don't invest is because they don't know enough women who are investing. So one of the biggest areas that I am very focused on is women talking about their investing, women sharing their stories about investing, and women acting as role models to other women. It's also worth saying, for those women founders in the room, for those of you who have successfully accessed investment, the same applies. Your stories of how you found investors and how investors supported you is also, you know, an incredibly important part of that too. Because one of the big areas that also holds women back is that they say they don't meet enough women founders who are looking for investment. So, you know, making it, you know, being visible about this is very important indeed. And if we look at sort of one of the big opportunities for women as to why this is so important, it's really because angel investing is a team sport. It really works best in syndicates, and we've proved that over many years. And if you look at the US market and the UK market, you can see that, that the most successful angel investing happens in syndicates, where people are pooling their knowledge, pooling their skills, pooling their money, sharing their risks, and sharing those further funding opportunities as well. So we know that working together makes sense. And we also know that for women, what's so important is that this is social. This is a sociable activity. This is all about making those choices and making those decisions alongside other women you trust and get to know. So that's why a group like this and creating syndicates around investment is so important for women. It's also worth bearing in mind that many women have rarely been given their advice by their financial advisor. So I don't know how many of you in the audience have been working with financial advisors or are financial advisors, but one of the big areas that we have spotted, which is a major difficulty, is that they're not advised to angel invest. They're not told about the fantastic tax breaks, about EIS and SEIS. And I don't think I'll go into those today, but I'm sure many of you are aware of them. But actually that take up of those as a risk mitigator is absolutely fundamental. And so we've got an advisory community and a general community that's not really supporting women. So, what you're doing is very important today. I would like to also add that the whole point about angel investing is that, you are not just putting equity into a business. You're not just putting risk capital there and taking some shares in a business. You are giving them your advice, your help, your expertise, and your mentoring. And that is so valuable. And for women founders to have an experienced woman around them who's been there and done it and knows a lot more about business than they do has been fundamental. And under COVID, we've seen how important that is, particularly for many of us who've been through at least one or two financial crises, before now. We've known how to give that strategic advice and help, and that's been fundamental too. So we can't say enough how important it is to have more women out there. Perhaps the other important thing really is the approach to decision making. We know, for example, that having women in the room at the same time as men is likely to really change the approach to making a decision about which entrepreneurs to back. So having that mixed team, that mixed thought process in the due diligence process and in the assessment and decision-making process is absolutely fundamental, and women can play a very important part in that. I will say we don't have enough lead angels among women. Women have tended up to now to kind of follow a little bit. So where we have a strong group of women, I do urge you to think who can be leads. And those leaders don't have to be the people with the most money. They can be people with expertise and with time and with the energy to want to help support. And you need leaders because often it's difficult to mobilize around a deal. There's a lot of factors to consider. You're working with the entrepreneur and helping to pull all the details together, but there's also a legal process involved as well. And so you need someone who's going to take that lead. And then ongoing, so important to have that pair of hands, those people there involved with the business, not too involved, I might add. We've certainly proved that over time, if you get over involved in a business as an investor, you are not doing the entrepreneur a favor. You definitely need to give them time to run their own business. But being there as a very helpful strategic advisor and addressing some of the key areas that you might have more knowledge about, perhaps under areas like HR or finance or marketing, is absolutely invaluable. So I do encourage women who perhaps have the time to think of becoming a lead angel and helping to build syndicates around them. I think that will be very important indeed. It's also worth bearing in mind that another reason many women don't engage, and this is where syndication becomes so important, is many women feel you have to be very rich to be an investor. And the one thing that we have totally tried to dispel as a myth is that you need to be able to put a huge amount of your own personal wealth aside to be an investor. And most people are making relatively small investments in a significant number of deals. You're looking to build a portfolio. So your main approach is to be putting, and again, it depends on the entrepreneurial deal, but from £5,000 upwards is a perfectly acceptable amount to be putting into a single deal. as an early stage woman investor, a woman who's just starting out to invest, and you might increase that as your confidence builds and grows. So I think all of those are very important points to bear in mind when you're investing, and when you're talking to people who are considering investing. You don't have to be rich, but the one thing you do have to bear in mind is that one funding round is rarely enough for a growing entrepreneur. So when you're thinking of backing a woman founder, it's incredibly important to bear in mind that if you're putting 5 or 10K in that first round, have you got another 5 or 10K that you can follow that further down the line as the entrepreneur grows and needs more money? And the beauty of syndication is that you can mobilize that money around you. You reach out to more women, you reach out to more 5Ks and 10Ks in order to kind of build that up. So that's the advantage of having a pool of people. When you are an individual investor, that's very challenging if it's all down to you. So, so that's very important to bear in mind. Another reason why syndication is so important is that, you know, how many deals can you manage? How many deals can you follow? Probably only a few if you're doing it in your own right. But if you're a group, you share the load, you share your skills and knowledge. Who's got some HR knowledge? Who's got some marketing knowledge? You know, who can help them with this and that? So all of those issues are important to consider when helping to build a group around you. And I always say to founders, one investor isn't going to be enough for you. Even if they can give you a lot of money, what happens further down the line? What happens when that investor's making another deal or is preoccupied? So you need that pool of people around you. I think another thing to bear in mind, though, is there's often a lot of confusion about, you know, what does success look like for angel investing? And it's been extremely difficult to tell that, mainly because it is a very private sport. Not that much information is shared. But I would say the one thing to remember is that it is a marathon. It's not a race. It's a long-term game. Your money is sitting, you know, within an entrepreneur for several years, and through potentially multiple funding rounds, not just from your own money, but from maybe further venture capital money, or even, you know, bank debt or so that accumulates. To get to that long-term point where they may sell the business and exit can be 10 years and is frequently 12 or 13 years for the best exits. There are only a few occasions when Google comes around the corner and buys it. It's much more likely to be a long-term game. And that's worth bearing in mind. You know, your money is tied up, but having a portfolio is fundamental because there's a constantly revolving opportunity for you there as those deals come to maturity. And it is worth bearing in mind, and I'm sure you know this only too well, that a lot of those businesses will not grow into those success stories and will be, you know, actually slow grow, but possibly very enjoyable investments. I mean, my own experience really shows that too, that I have a lot of ones that have not returned huge amounts of money, but have certainly been a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment and a lot of pleasure. Seeing those businesses grow, working with those founders and entrepreneurs, just, you know, it's really, you know, a very exciting area to bear in mind. I think when I was kind of thinking about, you know, kind of advice to female founders as well, alongside the angel investment, because I know, you know, it's important for women founders to understand their opportunities as well. What I would say is that the big challenges, and we found this from our work that we did with the Investing in Women Code, is that actually women are asking for too little money. Now, that may sound often a surprise, but they're asking for 50% less than their male counterparts. And this is an actually very, very serious issue. So where men will go and ask for £1 million, women will ask for £500,000. And women-led teams especially are tending to under ask. So I would say, and this is something, it's not a positive, it's actually a negative thing, because actually when you under ask, first of all, that to an investor can show that perhaps you lack that ambition to grow, but also it also worries us. We think you might going to run out of money very soon if you're really going to build and grow that business. But thirdly, do you really understand your business and your growth needs if you're asking less money? And so don't think that you are more appealing to ask for less. Ask for what you need. be ambitious and be strategic in that ask, and I think you will find you get the investment that you need. And that is true whether you're approaching men or women. You know, we do look at that and say, is this a sensible funding strategy? And then what I would say is, to any woman who's still, you know, hesitant and thinking, should I invest? I think it's worth bearing in mind that this is you know, there is so much to mitigate your risks. You know, you have wonderful tax breaks. We have co-investment funds. We have people who've been doing it for years. And so it's always worth making sure that you are doing it alongside people who do know it, who do know what they're doing, who can answer your questions as you go along, and also making sure that you feel very, you know, very confident in your investing decision. The worst thing is to decide to become an angel and not invest. So I would say start, you know, you can start small and build big, but do work alongside others. Do draw on the experience of others. And groups like this become a fundamental way to really share and network and gain that knowledge and experience. And most importantly, seeing great founders, things that really entice you to want to put your money there. So I'm going to stop there because there may be a few questions, but I want to say how supportive I am. And, you know, as a trade body, this is right down the middle of where we want to be, which is seeing great groups like this come together.